At my parents' annual 4th of July party, my sister Lauren stood up during dinner, raised her wine glass, and announced to 40 relatives, "Some people just try too hard to matter, don't they?" Every head turned toward me. The silence was deafening. I felt the familiar sting of her cruelty, but this time was different. I calmly pulled out my phone, and tapped a single button. 5 minutes later, Lauren's smug smile vanished. Dad grabbed my wrist. "Astrid, what did you just do?" The summer heat in Denver had been particularly brutal that year, but nothing compared to the coldness I'd felt from my sister Lauren over the past 3 months. To understand what led to that moment at the 4th of July party, I need to take you back to when everything started unraveling. My name is Astrid, and at 32 I worked as a junior marketing coordinator at a small environmental consulting firm downtown. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but I loved the creative aspects and believed in our mission. Lauren, 3 years my senior, had taken a different path. She was a successful real estate agent with her own team married to Preston, a corporate lawyer at one of Denver's most prestigious firms. From the outside, her life looked perfect. Our relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, Lauren was the golden child who could do no wrong. She brought home straight A's, won state debate championships, and charmed every adult she met. I was quieter, more artistic, preferring to spend hours drawing or writing stories. Our parents, especially our father, who was a district court judge, valued achievement and status above all else. In their eyes, Lauren's aggressive pursuit of success was admirable. My choice to study graphic design and work for a nonprofit was seen as settling for less. The real fracture in our relationship began on a rainy Thursday in early April. Our grandmother Eleanor had passed away peacefully in her sleep at 91. She'd lived in the same Victorian house in Capitol Hill for 60 years, a beautiful 3-story home with original hardwood floors and stained glass windows. Grandma Eleanor had been the only family member who truly understood me, who valued creativity and kindness over monetary success. After the funeral, our family gathered at my parents' house in Cherry Creek to discuss the estate. Grandma's will was straightforward: her house and belongings were to be sold with the proceeds split equally between Lauren and me. It should have been simple. "Obviously, I'll handle the sale," Lauren announced before anyone else could speak. She sat at the head of the dining table, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the emotional day. "I'll list it through my agency. The commission will help cover all the work I'll be doing." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. "Shouldn't we use a neutral agent? It seems like a conflict of interest if you're both the beneficiary and the seller." Lauren's eyes narrowed a look I knew too well. "Are you seriously suggesting I can't be trusted with our grandmother's house? I'm a top producer in the metro area. I know the market better than anyone." "That's not what I'm saying," I replied carefully. "I just think it would be cleaner to use someone else. We could interview a few agents together." "This is ridiculous," Lauren snapped. "Mom, Dad, tell her I should handle this. I'm the only one with real estate experience." Our mother, Patricia, looked between us nervously. She hated conflict and always defaulted to supporting Lauren to keep the peace. "Well, Lauren does know the business." "It's decided then," Lauren said, cutting off any further discussion. "I'll get the paperwork started tomorrow." Over the next few weeks, I tried to stay involved in the process. I asked to see the listing agreement, requested updates on showings, and offered to help sort through Grandma's belongings. Lauren blocked me at every turn. She scheduled meetings during my work hours, claiming those were the only times available. She hired an estate sale company without consulting me, saying she didn't want to burden me with the details. The turning point came during a family dinner in late May. I'd taken time off work specifically to discuss the house sale, bringing a folder of questions and suggestions. Lauren arrived late, breezing in with Preston, and immediately dominating the conversation with stories about their upcoming vacation to Cabo. When I finally managed to bring up the house, Lauren sighed dramatically. "Oh, Astrid, always so anxious about money. Don't worry, little sister. I've got everything under control." "I'd still like to see the listing agreement," I said firmly. "As co-beneficiary, I have a right to be involved." Lauren exchanged a look with Preston, then smiled in that condescending way that made my skin crawl. "Actually, you've already signed off on everything. Remember last month when you agreed I should handle it? I had my assistant send over the documents and you e-signed them." My stomach dropped. "I never signed anything. I haven't received any documents from your office." "Check your spam folder," she said dismissively. "Sometimes important emails end up there. Anyway, it's all handled. The house is already listed and we have 3 showings tomorrow." I pulled out my phone, frantically checking my email. Nothing in spam, nothing in trash. "Lauren, I'm telling you, I never received or signed anything." "Well, the documents say otherwise," she replied coolly. "Maybe you forgot you've seemed really stressed lately. Is everything okay at work?" The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced. Our parents looked at me with concern rather than suspicion toward Lauren. I saw Preston hide a smirk behind his wine glass. "I want to see these supposed documents," I demanded. Lauren pulled out her phone with exaggerated patience, like she was dealing with a difficult child. After a few swipes, she showed me a DocuSign agreement with what appeared to be my electronic signature. I didn't sign this," I said, my voice shaking. "This is forged." "Astrid." Our father's stern voice cut through my protest. "That's a serious accusation. Your sister would never—" "But Dad, I'm telling you, I didn't sign this." "Maybe you should talk to someone," Lauren said softly, placing a concerned hand on our mother's arm. "This paranoia isn't like you. First you accuse me of having conflicts of interest, now you're saying, I forged documents, I'm just trying to help our family through a difficult time." The rest of the dinner was a blur. My parents clearly believed Lauren. Preston backed up his wife's story about sending documents. I left feeling crazy, doubting my own memory, but deep down I knew the truth. Lauren had forged my signature and was steamrolling me out of any involvement with our grandmother's estate. That night I made a decision. If Lauren wanted to play dirty, I needed to protect myself. I started documenting everything. Saving text messages, recording phone calls. Colorado is a one-party consent state, and creating a paper trail of every interaction. I also did something else. I installed a small security camera in my apartment, paranoid that Lauren might escalate. It seemed extreme at the time, but my instincts would prove correct. I began to realize this wasn't just about our grandmother's house. This was about Lauren systematically destroying my credibility within our family, and I was determined to find out why. Little did I know that my sister's deception ran deeper than simple greed. The security camera would soon capture evidence that would change everything, setting in motion events that would culminate at that 4th of July party, where Lauren would make her final move and I would make mine. June arrived with a series of calculated moves from Lauren that made her previous actions look tame. She scheduled every single house showing during my work hours, specifically between 9 and 5 on weekdays. When I complained, she responded with fake concern. "I'm so sorry, Astrid, but serious buyers can only view properties during business hours. You understand, right? I mean, your little job is important too, but we need to prioritize getting the best price for Grandma's house." Her use of little job stung, but I managed to arrange time off for a Saturday, showing she'd reluctantly scheduled. When I arrived at Grandma's Victorian house that morning, I found Lauren standing on the front porch with an elderly couple. "Oh, Astrid," she said with exaggerated surprise. "I thought I texted you. The buyer's rescheduled for yesterday. They've already made an offer." "You didn't text me," I said, pulling out my phone to show her. And why wasn't I consulted about the offer? Lauren ushered the confused couple toward their car, speaking in hushed tones. I caught fragments. Sister. Mental health issues. Very difficult time. When she returned, her expression was sympathetic, but her eyes were cold. They withdrew their offer, she said sadly. Your aggressive behavior scared them off. This is exactly why I didn't want you involved. You're too emotional about the house. I barely said 2 sentences. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. Plus, showing up looking so... She gestured vaguely at my weekend clothes. Unprofessional. First impressions matter in real estate. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a deep breath and asked, Can I at least go inside? I'd like to get some of Grandma's photo albums. The estate sale company is cataloging everything. You can't remove items without their approval. I'll have them set aside some photos for you. She left me standing on the porch of my grandmother's house, locked out like a stranger. That evening, I discovered she'd changed the locks without informing me. When I confronted her via text, she claimed it was for security purposes and promised to get me a copy of the new key. That promise, like so many others, would never be fulfilled. The next few weeks brought more disturbing discoveries. My mail began arriving sporadically. First, I missed a credit card statement, then a jury duty summons that resulted in a failure to appear notice. When I visited the post office, they had no explanation for the irregular delivery. The mystery solved itself when I reviewed footage from my apartment security camera. There was Lauren clear as day, using a key I didn't know she had to enter my apartment while I was at work. She went straight to my mail pile on the kitchen counter, photographing documents and pocketing others. The violation of privacy was staggering, but what she did next was worse. She moved to my home office, accessing my laptop. I'd stupidly left it open and spent 20 minutes doing something on screen. When I checked my browser history and email, I found she'd been gathering my personal information, social security number from tax documents, bank account details, even my work passwords. I immediately changed all my passwords and installed additional locks, but the damage was done. Lauren had everything she needed for whatever scheme she was planning. I considered going to the police, but knew how it would look. Successful real estate agent with pristine reputation versus the paranoid younger sister who'd already accused her of forgery. I needed more evidence. That evidence came sooner than expected. On a humid Tuesday evening, I decided to drive by Grandma's house. Lauren had mentioned the estate sale was happening that weekend, and something felt off about the timing. The house stood dark against the evening sky, but I noticed a light in the basement. I parked down the street and walked quietly around to the back garden. Through the basement window, I saw Lauren and a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, heavily built with sleeve tattoos and an aggressive way of moving. They were loading boxes into the back of a van. Not just any boxes. I recognized Grandma's antique silver collection, her vintage jewelry boxes, and several paintings that had been in our family for generations. My hand shook as I recorded everything on my phone. These items weren't supposed to be removed before the estate sale. They were supposed to be appraised and sold publicly with proceeds going to the estate. Lauren was stealing our grandmother's most valuable possessions. I followed at a distance as they drove the van to a storage facility on the outskirts of Denver. Lauren and the man unloaded everything into Unit 47B. I noted the address and unit number, then waited until they left to get closer. Through the gap under the roll-up door, I could see dozens of boxes, furniture, and artwork that should have been in Grandma's house. The next morning, I called the estate sale company. They confirmed what I suspected. They had no record of removing any items from the house. According to their inventory, everything should still be in place for the sale. Lauren had been systematically emptying the house of valuables while maintaining the pretense of a legitimate estate sale. But who was the man helping her? His presence suggested something darker than simple theft. I spent hours studying the video I'd taken, finally getting a clear shot of the van's license plate. A friend who worked at the DMV owed me a favor, and while I won't detail how I got the information, I learned the van was registered to Marcus Wheeler. A Google search revealed little about Marcus, but a deeper dive into court records painted an alarming picture. Multiple arrests for assault suspected ties to illegal gambling operations, and a current case pending for extortion. This wasn't just some moving company Lauren had hired. She was involved with genuinely dangerous people. The pattern was becoming clear. Lauren's designer clothes, luxury cars, and lavish vacations had always seemed excessive even for a successful real estate agent. I'd assumed Preston's law firm's salary supplemented their lifestyle. But what if Lauren had been living beyond even their combined means? What if she'd gotten involved with the wrong people and owed money she couldn't pay? I needed professional help to uncover the full truth. Using my savings, I hired Sam Chen, ironically one of the names Lauren would probably hate, a forensic accountant recommended by a friend. I gave him everything: the forged documents, evidence of stolen items, Marcus Wheeler's information, and my suspicions about Lauren's finances. "Give me 2 weeks," Sam said after reviewing the initial documents. "If your sister is hiding something, I'll find it." Those 2 weeks passed slowly. I continued documenting everything, avoided family gatherings where Lauren could control the narrative, and waited. When Sam finally called, his voice was grim. "You need to come to my office. What I've found, it's worse than we thought." Sitting across from Sam, surrounded by financial documents and bank statements, I learned the terrifying scope of Lauren's deception. She hadn't just stolen from our grandmother's estate. She'd been embezzling from her real estate clients for over 2 years, moving money through shell companies and fake investments. The total was staggering, over $500,000. "But here's the worst part," Sam said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Look at these loan applications." My blood ran cold. There were 5 loans totaling $300,000, all in my name, using my social security number and forged signatures. The applications included employment verification from companies I'd never worked for and tax returns I'd never filed. "She's setting you up," Sam explained. "When this house of cards collapses, all the evidence will point to you. She's created a paper trail that makes it look like you're the one who's been stealing and taking out fraudulent loans." "But I can prove I didn't." "Can you?" "She's been careful. The loans went to accounts opened in your name. The money was transferred to the same shell companies she used for her embezzlement. On paper, you look like the mastermind." I felt physically sick. My own sister wasn't just stealing from me, she was preparing to destroy my entire life to save herself. The 4th of July party was just a week away. Knowing Lauren, she would use that public platform to deliver the final blow to my credibility before her scheme imploded. "What do I do?" I asked Sam. "We gather every piece of evidence, document everything, and then—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You need to get ahead of this. If she's planning something, you need to be ready to counter it with the truth." That night, I sat in my apartment surrounded by evidence of my sister's betrayal. The security footage, financial documents, photos of stolen property, recordings of Marcus Wheeler. It painted a picture of systematic criminal behavior that would shock our family to its core. But would they believe me? Lauren had spent months painting me as unstable, paranoid, jealous of her success. The 4th of July party loomed like a storm on the horizon. I knew Lauren would make her move there in front of our entire extended family. What I didn't know yet was that she had one more devastating card to play, one that would complicate everything and force me to modify my plans at the last possible moment. The forensic accountant's revelations had shaken me, but I needed to understand the full scope of Lauren's plan. I spent the next 3 days piecing together the timeline, and what emerged was a masterclass in manipulation that had been months in the making. Sam had uncovered a pattern in the fraudulent loans. They'd been taken out systematically, each one after Lauren had visited my apartment and gathered more personal information. The employment verifications came from companies owned by Marcus Wheeler's associates. The fake tax returns were sophisticated forgeries that matched my legitimate income closely enough to pass initial scrutiny, but inflated my earnings to justify larger loan amounts. "She's been planning this for at least a year," Sam explained during another meeting. "Before your grandmother even passed away." "A year, but why?" Sam pulled up a series of property records on his laptop. "Your sister hasn't been as successful as she appears. Look at these transactions." The documents showed a disturbing pattern. Lauren had been buying investment properties at the peak of the market, leveraging them to buy more, creating a precarious house of cards. When property values dipped even slightly, she couldn't make the payments. She started borrowing from her clients' escrow accounts to cover the shortfalls, Sam continued. "Classic Ponzi scheme behavior. Use new client money to pay off old debts, hoping the market would recover before anyone noticed." "But it didn't recover fast enough." "Exactly. And that's where Marcus Wheeler comes in. Based on these cash deposits she borrowed from him to keep the scheme going. When you borrow from people like Wheeler, you don't get to declare bankruptcy if things go bad." The full picture was becoming horrifyingly clear. Lauren had dug herself into a hole so deep that only a massive influx of cash could save her. Our grandmother's house, worth over $800,000 in Denver's hot market, was supposed to be her salvation, but half of that would go to me and it still wouldn't cover all her debts. "So she decided to frame me for everything?" I said, the words tasting bitter. "It's elegant in its cruelty," Sam admitted. "If you're arrested for fraud and identity theft, you can't inherit. Your share would likely go to her as the only remaining beneficiary. Plus, she's created enough fraudulent debt in your name that your assets would be seized to pay restitution." I thought about confronting Preston with this information. Despite his smug attitude at family dinners, he didn't deserve to be married to a criminal. The next morning, I waited outside his law firm's building, intercepting him before he could enter. "Preston, we need to talk about Lauren." His expression immediately turned hostile. "Astrid, this has to stop. The harassment, the stalking, these wild accusations." "I have evidence, financial documents, security footage." "Lauren warned me you might do this." He pulled out his phone. "She said you've been fabricating evidence because you're jealous of our success. I'm calling building security. She owes money to criminals she's been stealing from her clients." Preston's finger hovered over his phone. "You need help, Astrid. Professional help. Lauren's already filed a restraining order application. If you come near either of us again..." "She's setting me up the loans in my name." "The loans you took out to fund your lifestyle while pretending to work at a nonprofit?" His voice dripped with disdain. "Lauren showed me everything. The gambling debts, the shopping addiction, how you've been stealing from your grandmother's estate to pay for it all." I stood there stunned by how thoroughly Lauren had poisoned him against me. She'd flipped the entire narrative, making me the villain in the story of her crimes. Preston walked past me into the building, already dialing security. That evening, 2 police officers showed up at my apartment with a temporary restraining order. Lauren had filed it that morning, claiming I'd been stalking her, making threats, and exhibiting erratic and dangerous behavior. The document included sworn statements from Preston and 2 of Lauren's employees about my supposed harassment. The restraining order meant I couldn't attend any family gatherings where Lauren might be present. With the 4th of July party just days away, she'd effectively banned me from the one opportunity I'd have to expose her to the entire family. Or so she thought. I called Sam immediately. "Can she do this?" "The temporary order is just that. Temporary. But fighting it would take weeks, maybe months. By then her plan will be complete. There might be another way, Sam said carefully. I have contacts in law enforcement. The FBI has a white-collar crime division that takes fraud of this magnitude seriously. If we present them with the evidence. How long would that take? To build a case, months. To get them interested enough to start investigating, maybe a week or two. I didn't have weeks. Lauren's plan was accelerating. That night I discovered why when I overheard a voicemail she'd left on my parents' phone, they still hadn't figured out speakerphone and accidentally broadcast it while I was visiting. Mom, I have wonderful news Preston and I are expecting. We wanted to tell everyone at the 4th of July party. Isn't it perfect timing new life after we've lost Grandma? Oh, and don't worry about Astrid's behavior lately. The restraining order should keep her from causing any more scenes. Pregnant. Of course. Lauren's ultimate insurance policy. Our traditional parents would never believe a pregnant woman could be a criminal mastermind. The pregnancy announcement would come right after she publicly destroyed me, cementing her position as the sympathetic victim. I spent the next 2 days organizing every piece of evidence into a comprehensive file. Bank records, forged document security footage recordings, Sam's forensic analysis. Everything that proved Lauren's guilt and my innocence. I uploaded it all to multiple cloud services and prepared a detailed summary that could be understood quickly. Then I created an automated email system. If triggered, it would simultaneously send the evidence package to 50 recipients, the FBI's white-collar crime unit, the Colorado Attorney General's office, the Denver Police Fraud Division, the Colorado Real Estate Commission Preston's law firm, our parents, and every single person on the 4th of July party guest list. The system was simple. One button on my phone would activate it. The emails would send immediately, no way to stop them once started. It was my nuclear option, but I knew I'd likely only have one chance to use it. The restraining order presented a problem. I couldn't legally attend the party. But as I reviewed the document again, I noticed something. Lauren, in her haste, had made an error. The order specified I couldn't come within 500 feet of her person, but it didn't explicitly ban me from my parents' property. If I arrived early before Lauren, I wouldn't be violating the order. Once she arrived, she could demand I leave, but those crucial first moments might be enough. It was risky, but it was my only shot. The morning of July 4th, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. I dressed carefully in a simple but elegant outfit, nothing Lauren could mock as unprofessional or trying too hard. I loaded the evidence files one more time, checked the email system, and prepared for what would either be my vindication or my complete destruction. I didn't know that Lauren had one final surprise planned. Hidden among the party preparations, Marcus Wheeler would be waiting ready to record my unstable reaction to Lauren's provocations. She intended to push me until I snapped, providing video evidence for both criminal charges and an involuntary psychiatric hold. But I had spent months learning to control my reactions to document rather than explode. Lauren had taught me well through her cruelty. At the party, when she delivered her carefully crafted speech designed to destroy me, I wouldn't give her the reaction she expected. Instead, I would give her something she never saw coming, the truth delivered to 50 recipients with the simple tap of a button. The countdown to the party had begun, and with it, the end of Lauren's elaborate deception. The 2 weeks before the 4th of July party were a masterclass in preparation. I knew Lauren would orchestrate every detail to ensure my complete humiliation, so I had to be ready for any contingency. My lawyer, Janet Morrison, helped me understand the restraining order's limitations while Sam Chen finalized the forensic evidence. The order is flawed, Janet explained. It restricts you from approaching Lauren but doesn't ban you from your parents' property. If you arrive first and remain in a fixed location, you're not technically violating it. What if she calls the police? She might. But if you're calm and have evidence that you were there first, it becomes a civil matter. The police won't arrest you without clear violation. I refined my email bomb system, creating multiple triggers in case my phone was confiscated. I could activate it from my smartwatch tablet or even through a voice command to my virtual assistant. The emails contain not just evidence, but a clear timeline showing how Lauren had orchestrated everything. 3 days before the party, I made a disturbing discovery. While reviewing security footage from outside my apartment building, I noticed Marcus Wheeler's van parked across the street on multiple occasions. He'd been watching me, learning my routines. On one recording, I saw him on his phone, clearly reporting my movements to someone. This escalated beyond financial fraud. Lauren was working with a dangerous criminal who was actively surveilling me. I immediately filed a police report, adding another layer of documentation to my growing file. The morning of July 3rd, I visited my parents under the pretense of helping with party preparations. My mother was in the kitchen making her famous potato salad, while my father supervised the installation of extra tables in the backyard. "Astrid, honey, I'm glad you're here," my mother said, though her smile was strained. "About tomorrow." Lauren mentioned the restraining order. "I know it looks bad, Mom, but there's more to this story than Lauren's telling you." My father entered the kitchen, his judge's demeanor in full force. "Astrid, your sister is pregnant and doesn't need this stress. Whatever jealousy or resentment you're harboring..." "Dad, what if I told you I had evidence that Lauren's been committing fraud?" His face darkened. "These accusations need to stop. Lauren showed us the loans you took out, the gambling websites you've been visiting. We're worried about you." "She fabricated all of that, I can prove." "Enough!" His voice was sharp. "If you come tomorrow, you will be respectful. No drama, no accusations. Or you'll be asked to leave immediately." I left their house feeling defeated but not broken. They'd see the truth tomorrow whether they wanted to or not. That evening, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Sure enough, Marcus's van cruised past my building twice. He wanted me to know he was there, a form of intimidation. I called Sam one last time. "Are you sure about this? Once I send everything..." "Astrid, she's going to have you arrested within days if you don't act. The fraudulent loans are already in collection. Credit agencies are about to destroy your financial life. You're out of time." He was right. I spent that night backing up everything one final time, writing a detailed explanation for my parents, and practicing staying calm, no matter what Lauren said. I even recorded a video message explaining everything scheduled to post on social media if I was arrested before the truth came out. The morning of July 4th dawned hot and cloudless. I arrived at my parents' house at 8 a.m., 3 hours before the party's official start time. My mother was surprised to see me. "You're early, sweetheart." "I wanted to help set up. And Mom, I need you to know that whatever happens today, I love you and Dad. Everything I'm about to do is to protect our family." She looked confused but accepted my help arranging flowers and setting tables. By 10:30, early guests began arriving: aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends. I greeted everyone warmly, positioning myself on the back deck, where I could see new arrivals but remain stationary. At 11:15, Lauren's white Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She emerged looking radiant in a designer sundress, her hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. Preston followed, carrying a covered dish. The moment Lauren saw me, her expression shifted from satisfied to furious. She marched straight to our father. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw him glance my way with disappointment. Then Lauren did something unexpected. She smiled and walked away. She wasn't going to make a scene about the restraining order. She had bigger plans. The party progressed with forced normalcy. I remained on the deck, various relatives stopping by to chat, unaware of the tension building. Lauren held court near the pool, accepting congratulations on her pregnancy from those she'd already told. At 12:30, I noticed movement by the side gate. Marcus Wheeler, dressed in casual clothes that didn't quite hide his threatening presence, slipped into the party. He blended into the crowd but kept his phone raised, clearly recording. Lauren had positioned her enforcer to capture whatever scene she planned to create. As guests gathered for the traditional 1 o'clock toast and dinner, Lauren kept glancing between me and Marcus, confirming he was ready. The 40-plus family members arranged themselves around the tables, plates full of barbecue and sides. This was her stage, and she was about to perform. I discreetly checked my phone one last time. The email system was armed and ready. 50 recipients were programmed in, including several I'd added that morning, local news outlets that might be interested in a real estate fraud story. My finger hovered over the send button as my father stood to welcome everyone. His speech was warm but brief, thanking everyone for coming and remembering those we'd lost, including Grandma Eleanor. Then he turned to Lauren with a proud smile. "Lauren has asked to say a few words. I believe she has some happy news to share." Lauren stood gracefully, her wine glass filled with sparkling cider raised high. Her smile was luminous as she began to speak, but I saw the predatory gleam in her eyes when they fixed on me. "Family." She began, her voice carrying perfectly across the yard. "This past year has been one of transitions. We've lost our beloved grandmother, but we've also been blessed with new beginnings." She placed her free hand on her stomach. "Preston and I are expecting our first child." The yard erupted in congratulations and applause. Lauren basked in it, waiting for quiet to continue. When she spoke again, her tone shifted to something more philosophical. "Becoming a mother has made me think about what really matters in life. Family, of course, success certainly, but also authenticity, being genuine, not pretending to be something you're not." "Here it comes. I thought my finger moving to the send button." It's sad when people feel they need to inflate their importance to create drama to be noticed. Some people, she paused, her eyes finding mine, just try too hard to matter. They fabricate stories, make wild accusations, anything to be the center of attention. Even in moments that should be about joy and family, they find ways to inject their toxic need for relevance. Every head in the yard turned toward me. The silence was suffocating. I saw my mother's mortified expression, my father's anger, cousins whispering behind their hands. Marcus had his phone trained on me, waiting for my explosion. But I didn't give them what they expected. I calmly stood up, pulled out my phone, and tapped a single button. The email system confirmed, "Messages sent to 50 recipients." Then I met Lauren's eyes and smiled. My father, confused by my reaction, grabbed my wrist. "Astrid, what did you just do?" I looked at him with perfect calm. "I sent the truth to everyone who needs to see it. Check your email, Dad. All of you should check your emails." The yard filled with the soft chime of phone notifications. One by one, people pulled out their devices. Lauren's smile faltered as Preston's phone buzzed insistently. "What is this?" someone asked. "FBI. Why is Astrid sending us FBI contact information?" "These bank records? Lauren, is this your signature?" The transformation was swift. Lauren's confident posture crumbled as she watched her carefully constructed world implode in real time. Preston was scrolling through document after document, his face growing paler with each swipe. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. My cousin David, a tech executive, had opened the video files first. His voice cut through the murmur of confusion. "Lauren, who's the man in this video helping you steal from Grandma's house?" All eyes turned back to Lauren, then followed her panicked gaze to Marcus Wheeler, who was already backing toward the gate. But he made a crucial mistake. In his haste to flee, he ran directly into two people entering the yard. They weren't party guests. They were FBI agents' badges clearly displayed. "Marcus Wheeler," one asked, "we need you to come with us, and Mrs. Lauren Davidson. Please don't leave. We have some questions for you as well." The 4th of July party had become a crime scene, and the fireworks were just beginning. The transformation of our family's 4th of July celebration into an FBI operation happened with surreal precision. As the two agents entered the backyard, their badges glinting in the afternoon sun, the festive atmosphere shattered like glass. Marcus Wheeler's attempt to flee lasted exactly 3 seconds before the larger agent smoothly intercepted him. "I'd advise against running, Mr. Wheeler," the agent said calmly. "We have agents at every exit." Lauren stood frozen at the center of attention she'd orchestrated, but not in the way she'd planned. Her hand dropped from her stomach, the pregnancy announcement forgotten, as phones buzzed and chimed around the yard with my email bomb's contents. "This is insane!" Lauren's voice pitched high with panic. "I'm pregnant. You can't. This is harassment. Astrid's been stalking me." Preston had gone silent, his lawyer's mind clearly processing the damning evidence on his phone. I watched him scroll through forged loan documents, photos of Lauren with Marcus bank records showing embezzlement. His expression shifted from confusion to horror to rage. "Lauren," he said quietly, his voice cutting through her protests. "These loans in Astrid's name? You told me she took them out." "She did, she's lying. Can't you see what she's doing?" "Your signature is on the notarization. You're listed as the authorized representative." He held up his phone. "This is your handwriting authorizing transfers from escrow accounts." My father, Judge William Morrison, 30 years on the bench, took control with practiced authority. "Everyone please remain calm. Let's allow law enforcement to do their job." But his eyes found mine filled with a mixture of shock and dawning realization. The lead FBI agent, who introduced herself as Special Agent Sarah Chen, addressed the party. "I apologize for the disruption. We're here regarding an ongoing investigation into financial fraud and identity theft. We'll need to speak with several people, starting with Mrs. Davidson and Mr. Wheeler." Lauren's carefully styled facade cracked completely. "You don't understand. I needed that money. They were going to hurt Preston. Hurt our baby." "Lauren, stop talking." Preston commanded, his attorney instincts finally overriding his shock. "Don't say another word without a lawyer." But Lauren was beyond reasoning. The pressure of months of deception, the shock of exposure, and the pregnancy hormones created a perfect storm of emotional breakdown. "It was supposed to be simple," she cried. "Take the money, pay Marcus back, frame Astrid for everything. She was supposed to be in jail by now." She spun toward me, mascara streaming. "You ruined everything, just like always, little perfect Astrid with her noble poverty and her creative soul. Do you know what it's like always having to be the successful one?" The pressure. "Lauren," Preston grabbed her arm. "Stop talking." But the confessions poured out like water from a broken dam. The markets tanked, every investment went bad, and Marcus? You don't say no to Marcus. He would have killed us, so yes, I took client money. Yes, I forged documents. Yes, I stole from Grandma's estate, but I'm pregnant. Special Agent Chen nodded to her partner, who gently but firmly approached Lauren. "Mrs. Davidson, we need you to come with us for questioning. Given your condition, we'll ensure you receive appropriate medical care." The yard erupted in chaos. Family members shouted questions. Some defended Lauren, unable to process the revelation. Others stared at their phones, reading evidence of crimes that boggled their minds. My mother sank into a chair, face pale with shock. Through it all, Marcus Wheeler remained silent, his predatory eyes fixed on Lauren with a look that made everyone step back. One of Lauren's victims had turned out to be more dangerous than she'd calculated. "Wait," Lauren said desperately. "I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything about Marcus's operation, the gambling, the money laundering, all of it." Marcus's expression darkened dangerously. The FBI agents quickly moved him toward a waiting vehicle, but not before he spoke just loud enough for Lauren to hear. "Wrong move, Princess." As the agents prepared to escort Lauren away, she made one last, desperate play. "I'm having contractions. The stress. The baby." For a moment, everyone froze. Then Special Agent Chen spoke into her radio calling for paramedics. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived, adding to the surreal scene of emergency vehicles at our family barbecue. The paramedics examined Lauren professionally. After a few minutes, one approached Agent Chen. "No signs of distress. Blood pressure is elevated, but not dangerously. She should be monitored, but there's no immediate medical emergency." Lauren's final manipulation had failed. As they helped her into the ambulance with an FBI agent accompanying her, she looked back at the destroyed party, the shocked faces of our family, and finally at me. "I hope you're happy," she said venomously. "You've destroyed our family." "No, Lauren," I replied quietly. "You did that all by yourself." Preston stood abandoned on the lawn, his perfect life in ruins. He looked at me with a combination of anger and grudging respect. "How long have you known?" "Months. I tried to warn you." "I should have listened." He laughed bitterly. "She played me perfectly. The pregnancy, was that even real?" "The paramedics seem to think so." "God help that child." He pulled off his wedding ring, staring at it. "I need to call my firm, and a divorce attorney, and probably a criminal defense lawyer for myself." As the ambulance and FBI vehicles departed, the party guests stood in stunned silence. Then the questions began directed at me from all sides. How did I know? Why didn't I say something sooner? What would happen to the house, to Lauren, to the baby? My father raised his hand for silence. "Astrid, I owe you an apology. We all do. But right now I need to understand what just happened." I spent the next hour walking the family through the evidence, showing them documents on my phone, explaining Lauren's scheme. The security footage of her stealing from Grandma's house particularly devastated my mother. "Eleanor's jade collection," she whispered. "Her mother's silverware. How could Lauren—" "Desperation makes people do terrible things," I said. "She got in too deep with the wrong people and saw me as her way out." My cousin David, the tech executive, had been analyzing the email package with professional interest. "This forensic work is exceptional. The documentation chain is perfect. You built an airtight case. I had help, and honestly, I hoped I'd never have to use it. I kept thinking Lauren would come to her senses, admit what she'd done." "Instead, she doubled down," my Aunt Margaret observed. "That speech about people trying too hard to matter, she was describing herself." As the afternoon wore on, the family slowly processed the trauma. Some relatives left early, unable to handle the drama. Others stayed, forming small groups to discuss what they'd witnessed. The food sat largely untouched, a feast for a celebration that had become something else entirely. Around 5 o'clock, Special Agent Chen returned to ask follow-up questions. She interviewed several family members, including my parents and me. Her questions were thorough but respectful. "Ms. Morrison, I have to ask, why didn't you come to us sooner?" "I only recently understood the full scope, and honestly, I knew how it would look. Successful older sister struggling younger sister. Without ironclad evidence, who would believe me? The evidence you compiled is remarkably thorough, almost like you knew exactly what we'd need for a conviction." I met her steady gaze. "My father's a judge. I grew up understanding the importance of documentation and chain of custody. Plus, when someone's trying to frame you for crimes you didn't commit, you learn to protect yourself. Fair enough. We'll need you to come to our offices this week for a formal statement. Bring your attorney. She handed me her card. You did the right thing, Ms. Morrison. Your sister was days away from destroying your life completely. The loans she took out in your name were about to trigger fraud alerts that would have led to your arrest. After the FBI left, my family gathered in smaller groups. My parents sat with me on the deck looking older than I'd ever seen them. All those times Lauren said you were jealous, unstable. My mother couldn't finish. She needed you to doubt me, I explained gently. If you believed her story, everyone else would too. My father, the judge who'd seen countless criminals but never expected one in his own family, struggled with his guilt. I should have seen it. The signs were there. Her expensive tastes, the way she always needed to control everything, how she turned every conversation into an attack on you. She was your daughter. You loved her. That's not a fault, Dad. As evening approached and the remaining guests prepared to leave, my phone rang. Preston. The FBI just called. They're freezing all our accounts pending investigation. I need to know, am I implicated in any of this? Not from what I found. Lauren kept you in the dark, probably to protect you in case things went wrong. You're a victim too, Preston. I don't feel like a victim. I feel like an idiot. He paused. The baby, if it's real, that child will need family who isn't in prison, despite everything I want to do right by my kid. We'll figure it out together, I promised. The whole family will. As the destroyed 4th of July party finally wound down, I stood in the backyard surveying the aftermath. Tables of uneaten food decorations that seemed garish, now the echo of Lauren's desperate confession still hanging in the air. But also something else relief. The truth was out. The elaborate scheme designed to destroy me had collapsed. My family finally saw who I really was. Not the jealous, unstable sister Lauren had painted, but someone who'd fought back against injustice with patience, intelligence, and courage. The fireworks that night would go on without us. Our family had already experienced enough explosions for one 4th of July. But sometimes I reflected the most important independence to declare is from the lies that bind us. The 5 minutes between pressing send on my phone and Lauren's complete breakdown felt like hours compressed into heartbeats. As phones chimed across the yard with incoming emails, I watched the precise choreography of destruction I'd set in motion. Preston was the first to truly comprehend the scope. His lawyer's mind processed information faster than the others, and I saw the exact moment he understood his wife had made him an unwitting accomplice to massive fraud. His face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally a cold, calculating assessment of his own legal exposure. Lauren, he said, his voice deadly quiet as he scrolled through document after document. The Hartley escrow account. The Zimmerman closing funds. You told me those were delayed wire transfers. Preston, baby, I can explain. Explain how you stole $400,000 from our clients. Explain how you forged my signature on disbursement orders. His voice rose with each question. Explain how you've destroyed my career along with yours. Around the yard, the chain reaction continued. My tech-savvy cousin David had already pulled up Marcus Wheeler's criminal record on his tablet, cross-referencing it with the surveillance footage I'd included. This guy's connected to the Cordova crime family, David announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Armed robbery, extortion, suspected murder. Lauren, what were you thinking? My Aunt Margaret, a retired banker, was examining the fraudulent loan documents with professional horror. These aren't just forged signatures. This is systematic identity theft with sophisticated financial structures. Shell companies layered on shell companies. But it was my father's reaction that cut deepest. The Honorable Judge Morrison, who'd spent 30 years upholding the law, watched his eldest daughter revealed as a criminal. He set down his phone with shaking hands and looked at Lauren like he'd never seen her before. 23 counts of fraud, he said quietly. 14 counts of identity theft, embezzlement, forgery, conspiracy. You're looking at 25 to life, Lauren. My God, what have you done? Lauren's composure shattered completely. You don't understand, none of you understand the pressure, the expectations. Everyone always comparing us. Successful Lauren and creative little Astrid. Do you know what it's like maintaining that image? So you became a criminal. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. I made bad investments. The market crashed, and then Marcus... Lauren spun wildly, searching for him, but the FBI agents were already escorting him toward their vehicle. He said he'd hurt Preston. Hurt the baby. I had to pay him back. Special Agent Chen stepped forward, her voice calm but authoritative. Mrs. Davidson, anything you say can and will be used against you. I strongly advise you to remain silent until you have legal representation. But Lauren was beyond advice, beyond strategy. The pregnancy hormones, the shock of exposure, and months of stress created a cascade of confession that no lawyer could have stopped. It started small. She babbled, mascara streaking down her cheeks. One client's earnest money, just borrowing it for a week to cover a margin call. I was going to pay it back, but then another investment went bad and another. Preston stepped away from her like she was contaminated. The ultrasound appointment last week. Was that real, or was the pregnancy another lie? It's real. Lauren clutched her stomach. I'm 12 weeks, I thought. I thought if I was pregnant, Astrid wouldn't expose me. That she'd think about the baby. All eyes turned to me. My cousin Jackie voiced what everyone was thinking. You knew she was pregnant and still did this. I met their stares steadily. I found out this morning. And yes, I still sent the emails. Because in 5 days, the fraudulent loans would have triggered my arrest. In 2 weeks, when Lauren's clients discovered their missing money, she would have let me take the fall. That child deserves at least one parent who isn't in prison. Cold, someone muttered. Justice, my father corrected firmly. Astrid did what Lauren counted on her not doing. She protected herself instead of enabling a criminal. The FBI agents were preparing to transport Lauren when she made her final desperate gambit. I'll testify, she screamed. I'll give you everything on Marcus's operation. The gambling, the money laundering, the murders. I know where the bodies are buried, literally. Marcus Wheeler, who'd remained silent until now, turned his dead eyes on Lauren. The temperature in the yard seemed to drop 10 degrees. Careful, princess, he said softly. Prison's dangerous for snitches. Accidents happen, even in protective custody. Are you threatening her? Agent Chen demanded. Marcus smiled coldly. Just observing. Stressed pregnant women can have all sorts of complications. Falls, food poisoning, tragic stuff. The agents quickly separated them, but the damage was done. Lauren went pale, finally understanding the true nature of the people she'd allied herself with. She'd thought she was using Marcus, but predators like him were always the ones in control. As they loaded her into the ambulance with FBI escort, Lauren looked back one last time. Our entire extended family stood in the wreckage of what should have been a celebration watching her downfall. Astrid, she called out. Take care of my baby. Please, promise me. Before I could respond, the ambulance doors closed. The last image of my sister was her tear-stained face behind glass, heading for a future of courtrooms and prison cells. Preston stood abandoned on the lawn, his perfect life in ruins. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I need to call my firm, my clients. God, some of these people trusted us with their life savings. Preston. My father approached him carefully. You'll need representation. I know you're a corporate lawyer, but criminal defense is different. I can recommend, with respect, Judge Morrison, your family has done enough." Preston's voice was bitter. "I need to call my own father and a divorce attorney and figure out how to raise a child whose mother will be in federal prison." As the FBI vehicles departed, the party guests began to dispersing, but not before the questions started flying at me from all directions. "How long have you been working with the FBI?" "I hadn't been, but I let them assume." "What happens to Grandma's house now?" "It would be tied up in asset forfeiture for years." "Will Lauren really go to prison while pregnant?" "Yes, though she'd likely give birth in a medical facility." My mother, overwhelmed, began crying quietly. "My daughter a criminal! How did I not see it? How did I fail so badly?" "You didn't fail, Mom," I said gently. "Lauren made choices. Bad ones, then worse ones to cover them up. This isn't your fault." Around 6 o'clock, as the destroyed party finally cleared out, Special Agent Chen returned for follow-up questions. She interviewed family members individually, building a timeline of Lauren's deceptions. When she interviewed me, her questions were particularly pointed. "The timing of your email blast was remarkably precise, almost like you knew we'd be here." I met her gaze steadily. "I knew Lauren would make her big move today. She always loved grand gestures. I gambled that if I exposed everything simultaneously, she'd confess in front of witnesses. I didn't know you were already investigating." Agent Chen made notes. "Your forensic accountant, Sam Chen. Any relation to me?" "Not that I know of. Chen's a common name." She smiled slightly. "Indeed it is. We'll need all your original documents and recordings. Your digital evidence is good, but we need physical chains of custody." "Of course, I've been expecting that." As evening fell, the family gathered in small groups processing the trauma. Some relatives blamed me for the dramatic exposure. Others praised my courage. Most were simply stunned that their successful, charming Lauren had been living a double life. My Uncle Robert, a psychiatrist, offered an observation. Lauren exhibits classic narcissistic personality disorder traits: the grandiosity, the lack of empathy, the willingness to destroy others for self-preservation. This wasn't a good person who made bad choices. This was someone who never developed proper moral boundaries. "She's still my daughter," my mother said defensively. "And you can love her while acknowledging what she is," Robert replied gently. "But enabling her helped create this situation." The family dynamic of golden child versus scapegoat set the stage for this tragedy. As the remaining guests departed, my phone buzzed with messages. Some from journalists who'd already gotten wind of the story. "Prominent real estate agent arrested at family party" made great headlines. Others from Lauren's victims thanking me for exposing her before she could steal more. But one message stood out. From Preston, "The baby is real. Confirmed with the OB/GYN. Whatever happens, that child is innocent. We need to talk about the future." The fireworks began in the distance, other families celebrating Independence Day normally. Our family sat in the gathering darkness, forever changed. The terrible, swift sword of justice had swept through our 4th of July, leaving devastation, but also perhaps the possibility of rebuilding on a foundation of truth rather than lies. My father found me alone on the deck as the last light faded. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "It took incredible courage to do what you did, to stand up not just to Lauren, but to all of us who enabled her." "I didn't want to, Dad. I kept hoping she'd come clean on her own." "But she wouldn't have. She'd have let you burn to save herself." He paused, Judge's wisdom mixing with Father's pain. "I spent so many years being proud of the wrong things. Success at any cost. Achievement over integrity. I helped create the monster she became." "She made her own choices." "Yes, but I rewarded those choices. Celebrated them, while dismissing your quieter path as less worthy. He looked at the stars beginning to appear. Your grandmother Eleanor saw it. She told me once that you had the stronger character. I didn't listen. We stood in companionable silence, watching fireworks bloom across the Denver skyline. Each burst of light illuminated the empty party tables, the untouched food, the decorations that now seemed to mock the idea of celebration. But in that destruction lay the seeds of something new. Truth, however painful, creates space for genuine healing. Our family would never be the same, but perhaps it could be something better. Honest, supportive, and free from the poison of Lauren's manipulations. The 4th of July would forever mark the day our family's illusions died. But it was also the day I declared independence from my sister's tyranny, the day justice prevailed over deception, and the day I learned that sometimes the most patriotic act is refusing to let corruption win, no matter the cost. 6 months after the 4th of July party that changed everything, I stood in a Denver courtroom watching my sister be sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. The pregnancy that she'd hoped would be her shield had instead become another source of anguish. She'd given birth in custody 2 months earlier with only a federal marshal present. Lauren looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit, her designer facade stripped away. When the judge read the sentence, she didn't cry. She'd run out of tears during the trial, where victim after victim testified about how her fraud had destroyed their lives. The Hartleys lost their dream home. Mrs. Chen, no relation to the FBI agent, depleted her life savings trying to recover the stolen down payment. 3 families had their children's college funds wiped out. "Do you have anything to say to your victims?" Judge Catherine Powell asked. Lauren stood slowly, her hands shackled. For the first time in her life, my sister spoke without calculation or manipulation. Preston sat in the gallery's front row, holding their daughter Emma. He'd divorced Lauren while she was in custody, but had taken full responsibility for the baby. Despite everything, he'd insisted Emma know her mother, bringing her to visits when allowed. The little girl had Lauren's eyes, but hopefully would grow up with better values. After the sentencing, our family gathered outside the courthouse. The past 6 months had been a journey of painful growth. My parents had sold their Cherry Creek mansion to help pay restitution to Lauren's victims. They now lived in a modest condo, finding peace and simplicity they'd never appreciated before. "I'm glad it's over," my mother said, looking older but somehow lighter. "The trial, the media circus, all of it." "It's not over," my father corrected gently. "Lauren has 8 years to serve. We have a granddaughter to help raise, and we have amends to make to Astrid." That had been the unexpected blessing in this tragedy. My parents, freed from their worship of material success, had finally seen me clearly. They attended my art shows, celebrated my promotion to marketing director, and most importantly, listened when I spoke. My nonprofit, Second Chances Financial Recovery, had launched 3 months after Lauren's arrest. Using my marketing skills and the credibility earned from exposing the fraud, I'd raised enough funding to help dozens of families recover from financial crimes. We provided free forensic accounting, legal referrals, and emotional support to victims who often felt alone and ashamed. "Astrid," a familiar voice called. I turned to see Sam Chen approaching with a smile. He'd become a regular volunteer at Second Chances, offering his expertise pro bono. "Sam, thanks for being here. Wouldn't miss it. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected. It's strange. I fought so hard for this day for justice, but now that it's here..." "You feel empty. More like sad. Despite everything, she's still my sister. That little girl still deserves to know her mother." Preston approached us, Emma sleeping in his arms. The baby had his dark hair, but Lauren's delicate features. "Astrid, thank you for your victim impact statement. I know it couldn't have been easy to ask for leniency. I'd surprised everyone, including myself, by requesting the judge consider Lauren's cooperation with authorities and her genuine remorse. Not for Lauren's sake, but for Emma's. 8 years was still substantial, but it could have been 25. Emma needs her mother to have hope, I explained, to believe she can become better. She asked me to give you this. Preston handed me a sealed envelope. The guards checked it. It's just a letter. I tucked it away to read later in private. The crowds were dispersing, the media packing up their cameras. Denver's financial crime story of the year was concluding, though its ripples would last far longer. That evening, our reduced family gathered at my parents' condo for dinner. It was smaller than our old gatherings, but more genuine. No pretense, no competition, just people who'd survived a crisis together. I've been thinking, my mother said over dessert. Eleanor's house finally sold after all the legal complications. The proceeds will go to Lauren's victims first, but there might be enough left to fund Astrid's nonprofit expansion. Mom, no, that money should go to you and Dad. We have enough, my father said firmly. We've learned the difference between wanting and needing. Eleanor would approve of her legacy helping fraud victims. She always saw through facades to what really mattered. Uncle Robert raised his glass. To Eleanor, who loved us despite our flaws, and to Astrid, who saved us from ourselves. I didn't save anyone, I protested. I just refused to be a victim. Sometimes that's the most heroic thing you can do, Robert replied. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I finally opened Lauren's letter. Her handwriting, once so confident, now showed vulnerability. Dear Astrid, I used to hate you for being everything I couldn't be, genuine creative content with yourself. I see now that my hatred was really fear. Fear that people would discover I was empty inside playing a role I'd created because I didn't know who I really was. Prison is terrible and exactly what I deserve, but it's also the first place I've had to face myself without masks or escapes. I'm in therapy, real therapy, not the performance I used to give our parents. The doctor says I have a personality disorder, that my brain literally doesn't process empathy the way others do. It's not an excuse, but it helps me understand why I could hurt people so easily. I'm learning slowly to feel things properly. When I think about what I did to you, to our family, to all those innocent people, the guilt is unbearable. But my therapist says that's progress. Sociopaths don't feel guilt. Maybe there's hope for me to become a real person someday. I know you advocated for leniency at my sentencing. I don't deserve your mercy, but I'm grateful. Not for me, but for Emma. She needs to believe her mother can change, that DNA isn't destiny. Preston sends photos. She has your smile. The real one, not the fake one I perfected in mirrors. I'm writing this to say 3 things. 1, I'm sorry. Deeply, truly sorry in ways I didn't know I could feel. 2, thank you for stopping me. If you'd let me continue, I'd have destroyed even more lives, including yours. 3, please help Preston raise Emma to be like you, not me. Teach her that real success comes from integrity, not image. I have 8 years to become someone worthy of being called Emma's mother. I intend to use every day. Your sister, who's finally learning what that means, Lauren. I set the letter down with tears in my eyes. Maybe people could change. Maybe Lauren would emerge from prison as someone capable of genuine human connection. Maybe Emma would grow up with a mother who'd learned the hardest lessons in the worst way, but emerged better for it. The next morning brought a new challenge. Marcus Wheeler's trial was beginning, and I was scheduled to testify. He faced life in prison for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy charges. Unlike Lauren, he showed no remorse, only cold fury at being exposed. But that was tomorrow's battle. Tonight, as fireworks from some winter festival lit up Denver's sky, I thought about independence. Not just the national kind we'd failed to celebrate 6 months ago, but personal independence. Freedom from toxic relationships, from enabling dysfunction, from staying silent when speaking up could save lives. My phone buzzed with a text from David, our tech entrepreneur cousin, startup idea, blockchain system to prevent financial fraud. You in? I smiled, typing back. Let's talk. But only if we call it Eleanor. 6 months ago at our family's 4th of July party, Lauren had stood up and mocked me for trying too hard to matter. She'd been projecting, of course. It was she who'd tried too hard, sacrificed too much, become too lost in pursuit of mattering. But here's what I'd learned. We all matter. Not because of our success or failure, our wealth or poverty, our images or reality. We matter because of how we treat others, the integrity we maintain when no one's watching, the courage we find to face hard truths. Lauren had tried to destroy me to save herself. Instead, she'd freed us both, me from her shadow, her from her self-created prison of lies. It wasn't the freedom either of us had imagined, but perhaps it was the kind we'd needed. The city lights twinkled beyond my window as I opened my laptop to work on grant proposals for second chances. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more testimony, continued healing for our fractured family. But tonight, I was at peace. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone's destruction. Sometimes justice and mercy can coexist. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who tries too hard to matter discovers they mattered all along, just not in the way they thought. Thank you, Grandma Eleanor, I whispered to the night, for seeing who I really was, for giving me the strength to stand up, for reminding me that real worth can't be stolen, only surrendered. Somewhere in a federal prison, my sister was learning that lesson too. And somewhere in Denver, a baby named Emma slept peacefully surrounded by family determined to break the cycles that had nearly destroyed us all. The 4th of July party that ended in handcuffs had become our Independence Day after all. Independence from lies, from toxic patterns, from the prison of perfectionism. We were free now, all of us, to become who we were meant to be. And that more than any fireworks display was worth celebrating. Dear reader, have you ever had to make the difficult choice between family loyalty and doing what's right? How do we balance love for our family members with the need to protect ourselves and others from their harmful actions? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to hear more stories about family justice and the complicated paths we take toward truth. Share this with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. May you find the courage to speak your truth, the wisdom to know when to act, and the peace that comes from living with integrity. Until next time, remember, you matter just as you are.